Daniel adjusted his formal suit and took a deep breath. The grand hall of the Sci-Fi palace was unlike anything he had ever seen. Tall golden pillars stretched to the sky. Glowing crystals lined the walls, and soft music played from unseen instruments. Hundreds of alien guests in colorful robes and armor filled the room, their eyes fixed on the grand ceremony before them. As the only human diplomat present, Daniel felt out of place. His job was to maintain good relations between Earth and the Sci-Fi Empire. But right now, all he wanted was to survive the night without embarrassing himself. A deep, echoing voice filled the hall. It was the Emperor of Zephyr, standing tall on the royal platform. His deep purple robes shimmered under the golden light, and his crown of silver spikes made him look even more intimidating. "Tonight, we celebrate the honor of my daughter, Princess Mira," the Emperor announced. The crowd clapped in a rhythmic pattern. Daniel followed their lead, clapping along, though he had no idea what the celebration was about. He had studied Sci-Fi customs, but nothing had prepared him for this event. A moment later, Princess Mira stepped forward. She wore a flowing green gown, her silver-blue hair braided elegantly. Unlike the others in the room, her expression was calm and thoughtful, as if she wasn't entirely comfortable with all the attention. One by one, high-ranking Sci-Fi nobles stepped forward and gave formal speeches. They spoke of Mira's intelligence, her leadership, and her importance to the future of the empire. Daniel, trying his best to follow along, stood silently at the back. Then came the moment that changed everything. An elderly Sci-Fi scholar stepped forward and raised his hands. "Let us honor the princess with a poem, an ancient tradition of respect." Daniel watched as the scholar began to speak. His voice was deep and dramatic, his words flowing like a song. The other guests nodded seriously, listening with admiration. But to Daniel's ears, the poem sounded strange, not because of the language, but because of the rhythm. The words rose and fell in a way that reminded him of something from Earth. It sounded like a nursery rhyme. Before he could stop himself, a small chuckle escaped his lips. The sound echoed through the silent hall. The music stopped. The guests turned. The scholar froze mid-sentence. Daniel's heart sank. "Oh no," he thought. "What did I just do?" The Emperor's gaze locked onto him, unreadable and cold. Princess Mira's eyes widened in shock. Whispers spread across the room like wildfire. A Sci-Fi noble, standing nearby, turned to Daniel with disbelief. "Did you just laugh?" Daniel's throat went dry. I." The Emperor stood from his throne. His voice, calm yet firm, rang through the hall. "Human, do you understand what you have done?" Daniel swallowed hard. "I didn't mean any disrespect. I just..." The Emperor raised a hand, silencing him. "In our culture, to laugh during the recital of honor is to declare an offer." Daniel blinked. "An offer?" Princess Mira turned to him, her face unreadable. "A proposal," she said softly. Daniel's stomach dropped. The Emperor's voice was final. "By our tradition, you have declared your intent to take my daughter as your wife." The hall fell into complete silence. Daniel's brain struggled to process what had just happened. One accidental laugh, and now he was engaged to an alien princess. This must be a joke, he thought. But judging by the serious expressions around him, it was very real. Daniel's mind spun in panic as he stared at the Emperor. The weight of 100 alien eyes pressed down on him. Did he hear that right? Did they really think he just proposed to the princess? He took a shaky step forward. "Wait, Your Majesty, there's been a huge misunderstanding." The Emperor's piercing gaze didn't soften. "Is there?" Daniel swallowed. He was a diplomat, trained to handle complex situations, but nothing in his training covered accidentally proposing to an alien princess. He turned to Princess Mira, hoping for support. "Princess, I didn't know about this custom. I would never disrespect you or your people." Mira remained silent, her face unreadable. The Emperor spoke again, his voice deep and steady. In Sci-Fi tradition, a public proposal cannot be taken back. Daniel's stomach dropped. But I didn't mean to. A murmur spread through the crowd. Some of the nobles looked amused. Others looked angry. A few whispered to each other, their expressions filled with shock. An official stepped forward and bowed to the emperor. "Your Majesty, if the human refuses the marriage, it would be a great dishonor to the royal family." Dishonor. Daniel's hands felt sweaty. The emperor's gaze remained firm. "Human, you have two choices. Accept the engagement or leave Sci-Fi forever." A heavy silence filled the hall. Daniel's mind raced. If he refused, he would be banned from Sci-Fi, one of the most powerful planets in the galaxy. This wasn't just about him. Earth had important trade agreements with the Sci-Fi. Losing their alliance could hurt thousands of people back home. He took a deep breath. "Your Majesty, can't we find another way?" The emperor didn't answer. Mira suddenly stepped forward. "Father," she said, her voice calm but firm, "I request to speak with the human alone before any decision is made." The emperor studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Very well." Guards led Daniel through a golden hallway into a quiet chamber. Mira followed, her long gown flowing behind her. The moment the doors closed, she turned to him. "You are in trouble," she said simply. Daniel let out a nervous laugh. "Yeah, I noticed." Mira studied him carefully. "You truly had no idea what your laughter meant, did you?" "None," Daniel admitted. "On Earth, laughter just means something is funny." She sighed. "Then you are either very unlucky or very foolish." Daniel rubbed his temples. "Look, I don't want to marry you. And I'm guessing you don't want to marry me either, right?" Mira hesitated. Then she gave a small nod. "Correct." Daniel exhaled in relief. "Great. Then let's just tell your father that we both refuse." Mira's expression darkened. "It's not that simple." Daniel frowned. "Why not?" She turned away, folding her arms. "If I refuse, my father will still need to find me a husband. And there is only one other candidate, General Varrak." Daniel's brows knitted. He had heard of Varrak, a powerful Zephyri military leader. Rumors said he was ruthless, a man who believed in war and conquest over diplomacy. "If I do not marry you," Mira continued, "I will be forced to marry him. And if that happens, Varrak will gain influence over my father. He will push for war instead of peace." Daniel felt a chill. "War with Earth?" Mira nodded. "Not just Earth, many worlds." Daniel let out a slow breath. This was way bigger than just him. If he left, Mira would be trapped in a marriage she didn't want, and Varrak would become even more powerful. "Then what do we do?" he asked. Mira hesitated. "There may be a way out, but it will not be easy." Daniel sighed. "Of course it won't be." Mira gave him a small smile. "You wanted another option. Well, I have one. But you will have to prove yourself." Daniel frowned. "Prove myself? How?" Mira's eyes gleamed. "By taking the trial of worth." Daniel had no idea what that was. But from Mira's expression, it didn't sound good. Daniel sat on a stone bench in the royal chamber, rubbing his temples. His life had taken a turn that not even the wildest sci-fi stories could explain. One laugh, and now he was caught in a royal mess. He looked at Princess Mira, who stood by the window, gazing at the glowing city beyond the palace. She seemed calm, but Daniel could sense the tension in her posture. "So, this trial of worth," he said slowly. "What exactly is it?" Mira turned to face him. "It is an ancient test, a way to prove one's strength, intelligence, and heart. In the past, only the most worthy could marry into the royal family." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "And if I fail?" Mira's voice was quiet. "Then you will be exiled. And I will have to marry Varrak." Daniel sighed. "Why does everything here have such high stakes?" Mira gave a small smile. "That is the way of Sci-Fi tradition. Daniel leaned forward, thinking. And if I pass? What happens then? Mira hesitated. If you pass, you will be recognized as my rightful betrothed. My father will have no choice but to accept it. Daniel frowned. That still doesn't fix anything. Neither of us actually wants this marriage. Mira's gaze flickered with something unreadable. Perhaps, but it would give us time. Time to find another solution. Time to prevent Varric from gaining power. Daniel exhaled. It wasn't an ideal plan, but compared to exile or a galactic war, it seemed like the best option. He stood up. All right, I'll do it. Mira's eyes widened slightly. You will. Daniel shrugged. I don't exactly have many choices, do I? Mira studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. Then we must prepare. The truth about Varric. As they left the chamber, 2 royal guards escorted them through the dimly lit palace halls. The walls shimmered with golden carvings, depicting past rulers and great battles. Daniel glanced at Mira. So, what's the deal with Varric? Why does your father trust him so much? Mira's expression darkened. Varric is a war hero. He led our forces in the last great battle against the Zoraki rebels. Many believe he is the reason our empire remains strong. Daniel folded his arms. And you? Mira hesitated, then spoke in a lower voice. I believe he is dangerous. He does not care for peace, only power. If he becomes part of the royal family, he will push my father toward war. He already has influence over the military, but if he were to marry me. She trailed off. Daniel understood. If Varric became royalty, no one would be able to stop him. Mira looked at him seriously. This is why I need you to succeed. You are my only chance to keep him from taking control. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. No pressure or anything. Mira's lips twitched. You are handling this better than I expected. Daniel sighed. Trust me, on the inside, I'm panicking. A plan for survival. They entered a training hall, where a long wooden floor stretched beneath a domed ceiling. Strange weapons lined the walls, and in the center, an elderly Sci-Fi man stood waiting. His silver eyes studied Daniel with quiet amusement. This is Master Rilo, Mira introduced. He is one of the few who knows the truth about Varric, and he will train you for the trial. Master Rilo bowed slightly. A human, taking the trial of worth. This will be interesting. Daniel sighed. I'm starting to hate that word. Mira stepped forward. Rilo, he does not need to win in strength. He only needs to survive. Rilo nodded thoughtfully. Then we will train his mind, as well as his body. Daniel frowned. Wait, why does that sound worse? Mira's eyes gleamed. Because it is. Daniel groaned. This was going to be a long night. Daniel stood in the training hall, sweat dripping down his face. His arms ached, his legs felt like stone, and his brain was spinning with everything Master Rilo had thrown at him. Again, Rilo commanded, tossing a wooden staff at Daniel. Daniel groaned but caught it. Across from him, a training drone floated in the air, its sleek metal body moving in quick, unpredictable patterns. It had already knocked him down 4 times. He swung the staff, trying to predict its movements, but the drone dodged easily. A second later, it spun and smacked him on the shoulder. Ow! Daniel winced. This thing is cheating. Mira, standing by the side, raised an eyebrow. It is a simple training drone. If you cannot defeat it, you will not survive the trial of worth. Daniel exhaled. Right. No pressure or anything. Rilo approached, his silver eyes calm. You rely too much on strength, human. You must think before you act. Daniel straightened. All right, let's try again. A dangerous opponent. Just as Daniel was about to face the drone again, the doors to the training hall swung open. A cold silence filled the air as General Varric entered. Varric was taller than any Sci-Fi Daniel had seen. His silver armor gleamed under the palace lights, and a long red cape flowed behind him. His sharp eyes locked onto Daniel, filled with quiet amusement. "So this is the human who thinks he can take the trial," Varric said. His voice was smooth, but there was a clear edge of arrogance beneath it. Daniel clenched his fists, not thinking. "I am taking the trial." Varric smirked. "A brave answer. But bravery will not save you." He turned to the Emperor's guards standing by the door. "Does the Emperor truly believe this human is worthy of Princess Mira?" One of the guards hesitated. "The Emperor has given his approval. The trial will determine his worth." Varric's eyes flickered with hidden anger, but he masked it quickly. He stepped closer to Daniel, studying him. "I could end this now," he said softly. "One move, and you would be gone." Daniel met his gaze. "You could," he said, forcing a smirk, "but then everyone would know you were too afraid to let me take the trial." Mira's eyes widened slightly at Daniel's boldness. Varric narrowed his eyes, then gave a slow smile. "Clever. But cleverness will not help you when you are facing death." Daniel held his ground. "Guess I'll find out." Varric let out a short laugh, then turned to leave. "Enjoy your training, human. You will need it." As soon as he was gone, Daniel let out a long breath. Mira stepped beside him. "You are either very brave or very foolish." Daniel chuckled. "A little of both. The challenge is set." That evening, Daniel sat in his chamber, staring at the ceiling. His muscles ached, his mind was tired, and the reality of the situation was sinking in. Tomorrow, he would face the trial of worth. If he failed, he would be exiled forever. If he won, he would still be caught in a mess of royal politics. A knock on the door made him sit up. "Come in." Mira entered, wearing a simpler outfit than before. Without the grand royal robes, she looked more human. "You should rest," she said. Daniel sighed. "Not easy when my whole future is on the line." Mira hesitated, then spoke softly. "You are not alone in this, Daniel. You are fighting for yourself, but also for me." Daniel looked at her and saw the weight she carried. She wasn't just a princess. She was someone trying to escape a fate she didn't choose. "I'll win," he said. "Somehow." Mira gave a small smile. "Then I will hope for your victory." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Good night, Daniel." As she left, Daniel sighed and lay back down. "Yeah," he muttered to himself. "Good night. Tomorrow, everything would change." Daniel stood at the entrance of the trial arena, his heart pounding. The massive stone structure stretched high into the sky, its walls carved with the stories of warriors who had taken the test before him. Bright golden torches lined the pathway, their flames flickering against the cold morning air. The arena was filled with Sci-Fi nobles, their glowing eyes watching with quiet interest. Some whispered to each other, clearly doubting that a human could pass the test. Others smirked, waiting to see him fail. At the center of it all, Emperor Xyros sat on his throne, his expression unreadable. Beside him stood Princess Mira, her face calm but her hands clenched. She was nervous, though she hid it well. Daniel took a deep breath. No turning back now. The first challenge, the path of balance. A royal announcer stepped forward, his voice booming across the arena. "Daniel, representative of Earth, your trial of worth shall begin." The first challenge, the path of balance. A massive stone bridge rose from the ground, stretching over a deep pit. The bridge was narrow and covered with shifting, uneven tiles. The other side was far, at least 30 meters away. Daniel frowned. "That doesn't look too bad." Mira's voice called from the royal stands. "Daniel, be careful. The path is." Before she could finish, the first tile under Daniel's foot moved. He stumbled forward, barely catching himself before he fell into the pit. The audience laughed, amused by his near fall. Daniel clenched his teeth. Great, a moving bridge. He took a cautious step forward, testing the tiles. Some were solid, but others tilted or sank when he stepped on them. If he made one wrong move, he would fall. He adjusted his stance, trying to move lightly, using his instincts instead of relying on force. Slowly, step by step, he moved forward. Halfway across, the tiles started shifting faster. He lost his footing for a second, but threw his weight forward, catching the edge of a solid tile. The crowd gasped. Mira stood at the edge of her seat, her fingers gripping the railing. With one final jump, Daniel landed on the other side. He turned and raised his arms, still standing. The crowd murmured in surprise. Even General Varek, who stood watching from the shadows, frowned slightly. The announcer's voice echoed again. The human has completed the first challenge. The second trial, the test of the mind. The second challenge, the test of the mind. A group of Sci-Fi scholars stepped forward, carrying a glowing blue crystal. They placed it on a pedestal in front of Daniel. This crystal holds a complex puzzle, the scholar explained. To pass, you must solve it before time runs out. Daniel looked at the crystal. Inside, tiny shifting symbols floated in strange patterns. Mira called out, "Daniel, you must align the symbols in the correct sequence. But be warned, wrong moves will make it harder." Daniel exhaled. Fantastic. A puzzle under pressure. A deep gong sounded. The test had begun. He studied the floating symbols. Some glowed brighter than others. There was a pattern, but it was shifting quickly. He had to find the right sequence before they changed. Using his fingers, he touched the symbols, moving them into different orders. The moment he placed one in the wrong position, the entire pattern scrambled, making it more complex. The crowd murmured in disappointment. Daniel gritted his teeth. Okay, no more mistakes. He slowed down, focusing on the way the symbols pulsed. Instead of rushing, he followed the rhythm of the glowing lights. One by one, he placed them correctly. The final piece clicked into place, and the crystal flashed with a bright blue light. A moment of silence. Then, the announcer raised his hands. The human has passed the test of the mind. The crowd erupted in surprise. Even the emperor's expression shifted slightly, as if impressed. Mira let out a relieved breath. Varek, standing in the shadows, narrowed his eyes. The final challenge. The duel of honor. The announcer's voice rang out. The third and final trial. The duel of honor. Daniel's stomach dropped. From the other side of the arena, a massive Sci-Fi warrior stepped forward. His muscles rippled under golden armor, and he carried a long energy staff that crackled with power. The announcer continued, "To complete the trial of worth, the human must survive a battle against Sci-Fi's finest warrior, Commander Vex." Daniel let out a shaky breath. Great, just great. Mira's voice reached him once more. Daniel, listen to me. You don't have to win. You just have to survive. He glanced at her, then at the massive warrior in front of him. Vex spun his energy staff, the weapon humming with power. Daniel picked up his own staff, feeling its weight in his hands. The gong sounded. The duel had begun. The arena fell silent as the gong echoed through the air. Daniel tightened his grip on his training staff, feeling the rough wood press into his palms. Across from him, Commander Vex stood tall, his golden armor shining under the arena lights. His energy staff crackled with blue lightning, humming with raw power. Daniel swallowed. This guy looks like he could break me in half. From the royal stands, Princess Mira called out, "Daniel, remember, you don't have to win, just survive." Great, Daniel thought. That makes me feel so much better. Vex took a step forward, spinning his staff effortlessly. "Human, I respect your courage, but you will fall." Daniel forced a smirk. "Yeah. Let's see about that." The battle begins. Vex struck first, swinging his energy staff in a wide arc. Daniel barely dodged, feeling the static charge tingle against his skin. He stumbled back, gripping his staff tighter. Vex didn't wait. He lunged forward, attacking with quick, precise strikes. Daniel blocked the first two, but the third hit his side, sending him skidding across the stone floor. The crowd cheered for Vex, their voices ringing through the arena. Daniel coughed, rolling to his feet. His ribs ached, but he ignored the pain. "All right. That hurt." Mira's voice carried through the arena. "Daniel, use speed, not strength." Daniel exhaled sharply. Right. He couldn't fight like Vex. He had to fight smarter. A new strategy. Vex charged again, his staff crackling with energy. But this time, instead of blocking, Daniel sidestepped, making Vex's attack miss by inches. The crowd gasped. Daniel grinned. "Missed me." Vex growled and swung again, but Daniel ducked. Instead of counterattacking with brute force, he used his speed, dodging each of Vex's powerful strikes. Little by little, Daniel forced Vex to move faster, making him use more energy. The crowd's cheers began to change. Some were impressed, others were surprised. Even the Emperor watched with newfound interest. Vex narrowed his eyes. "You think you can dance forever, human?" Daniel smirked. "I think I'm doing pretty well so far." The turning point. Vex suddenly changed his attack pattern, moving faster than before. Daniel tried to dodge, but Vex's staff clipped his shoulder, sending him stumbling. The commander pressed his advantage, swinging down with full force. Daniel reacted on instinct. He raised his staff and angled it just right. Vex's energy staff slammed into Daniel's weapon, but instead of breaking, the force was redirected. Vex's own strength threw him off balance. Daniel saw his chance. He twisted his staff, sweeping Vex's legs out from under him. The massive Sci-Fi fell to the ground with a heavy thud. The arena went completely silent. Daniel stood there, breathing hard, staring at the fallen warrior. Vex looked up, blinking in surprise. Then, slowly, he let out a deep laugh. He pushed himself to his feet, nodding in approval. "Clever. Very clever." The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. "The human has survived the duel of honor." The aftermath. The crowd roared, some in excitement, others in disbelief. Mira let out a deep breath, relief washing over her face. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead. His entire body ached, but he was still standing. Vex approached him, holding out a hand. "You fought with intelligence. You have my respect, human." Daniel shook his hand. "Thanks. I think I'll feel that fight for a week." Vex chuckled. "Then you are truly one of us now." From the royal balcony, Emperor Xyros rose from his throne. The crowd fell silent once more. The Emperor's golden eyes studied Daniel carefully. Then, in a deep voice, he spoke. "You have passed the trial of worth." Mira's face lit up. Daniel, exhausted but victorious, let out a relieved laugh. But deep in the shadows, General Varrac's expression darkened. The human had passed, and that meant Varrac's plans were in danger. The trial of worth was over, but Daniel still felt like his body had been hit by a spaceship. His muscles ached, and every step reminded him of the brutal duel against Commander Vex. But he had done it. He had passed. Now, as he stood before Emperor Xyros, the reality of his situation settled in. The royal court had gathered in a grand hall, its tall silver pillars reaching toward the ceiling like ancient trees. Nobles whispered among themselves, some impressed, others doubtful. The Emperor's golden eyes studied Daniel carefully. Then, in a deep voice, he spoke. "You have proven your worth, human. From this day forward, you shall be honored as a warrior of Sci-Fi." Mira let out a quiet breath of relief. The tension in her shoulders eased. Daniel, still catching his breath, forced a grin. "Well, that's good news." The Emperor's gaze darkened slightly. But the trial was only the first step. Daniel frowned. "Wait, there's more." A new voice cut through the air. "Yes, human. And this next step will not be as simple. A new threat." Daniel turned to see General Varek stepping forward. His silver armor reflected the hall's golden light, and his piercing blue eyes locked onto Daniel with hidden displeasure. Varek's voice was calm but carried a dangerous edge. The trial of worth proved that you have skill, but skill alone does not make one fit for the hand of a princess. Daniel stiffened. I never said I. Varek continued, ignoring him. Marriage to Princess Mira is a matter of diplomatic strength. A human bonding with a Sci-Fi royal is unprecedented. It is only natural that the nobility should question it. Daniel glanced at Mira. She looked angry, but she said nothing. She knew she couldn't argue against Varek in front of the court. Varek took another step forward, which is why I propose a formal challenge. The hall fell silent. Daniel sighed. Oh great, another fight. Varek smirked. Not a fight. A test of loyalty. Daniel crossed his arms. And what does that mean? Varek's expression remained unreadable. A mission. One that will prove whether you are truly worthy of standing beside our princess. Daniel raised an eyebrow. And if I refuse? Varek smiled coldly. Then you will be seen as a coward, one who passed a trial that lacks the will to stand by his future bride. Daniel blinked. Whoa, hold on. Who said anything about marriage? Mira finally spoke. General, you are twisting the emperor's words. The trial of worth does not force marriage upon anyone. Varek tilted his head. Perhaps. But perception matters, princess. If the human truly wishes to be part of our world, he must prove his loyalty. Daniel clenched his fists. He didn't like this. It felt like a trap. But he also knew that refusing outright would only make things worse. He glanced at Mira. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes held worry. Finally, Daniel sighed. Fine. What's the mission? Varek's smile widened. There is a rogue faction in the outer regions of Sci-Fi. They have stolen a royal artifact, a symbol of our people's strength. Your task is simple. Retrieve it. Daniel frowned. That's it. Varek's voice dropped slightly. Oh, there is one more thing. Daniel knew there was a catch. Varek's smirk deepened. You will go alone. An uncertain future. The room filled with quiet murmurs. Mira immediately stepped forward. That is unacceptable. He has just completed the trial. He needs time to recover. Varek shrugged. If he is truly worthy, he will succeed. Daniel exhaled. And if I don't? Varek's expression darkened. Then you will have failed the true test of a warrior. The weight of the situation settled on Daniel's shoulders. He had come to Zifar expecting a quick apology, not an intergalactic trial, a duel, and now a dangerous mission. He looked at Mira again. She was trying to hide her worry, but it was there, clear in her eyes. The Emperor remained silent, observing. This was a political game, and Daniel was caught in the middle. Finally, he gave a tired smirk. All right, General. I'll play your game. Varek's eyes glinted with satisfaction. Then prepare yourself, human. Your journey begins at sunrise. As the court dispersed, Mira approached him. Her voice was quiet but firm. Daniel, this is dangerous. You don't have to do this. Daniel sighed. I know, but if I don't, Varek wins. Mira hesitated. Then, in a softer voice, she said, then at least let me help you prepare. Daniel smiled. I'd like that. As the night fell over Zifar, Daniel knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The first light of dawn painted the sky in shades of gold and violet. Daniel stood at the edge of the royal hangar, staring at the sleek Sci-Fi scout vessel prepared for his journey. It was small, built for speed, and completely unarmed. Perfect. A dangerous mission with no weapons, just his luck. Mira stood beside him, her expression a mix of concern and frustration. This is a trap, Daniel. Varek is sending you out there alone for a reason. Daniel sighed. Yeah, I figured. But if I refuse, he wins, And if I go and fail, he still wins. So my best bet is to actually succeed. Mira crossed her arms. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Daniel smirked. With my charm. And luck, of course. Mira rolled her eyes but didn't smile. This isn't a joke, Daniel. The rogue faction you're dealing with isn't just a group of thieves. They're exiles, warriors who rejected the Emperor's rule. They don't follow our laws, and they certainly won't welcome you. Daniel exhaled. Great, so I'm flying straight into enemy territory. Mira nodded. Exactly. That's why I'm giving you this. She handed him a small silver device. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What's this? A signal beacon. If things go wrong, activate it, and I'll come for you. Daniel smirked. Didn't you just say these guys don't follow your laws? What makes you think you can just walk in and save me? Mira's voice softened. Because I'm not going to let you die out there. Daniel felt a warmth in his chest. He gave her a grateful smile before stepping into the ship. I'll be back before you know it, he said, trying to sound confident. Mira didn't look convinced, but she nodded. Be careful. The ship's hatch sealed shut, and within seconds, the engines roared to life. As Daniel took off into the sky, heading toward the unknown, he had only one thought. Yeah, this is definitely a bad idea. Enemy territory. The journey took several hours. Daniel piloted the small craft through the endless darkness of space, guided only by the coordinates Varric had provided. As he neared the deserted moon where the rogue faction was hiding, his ship's sensors flashed red. Warning. Unidentified vessels detected. Daniel gritted his teeth. Here we go. 3 dark ships emerged from the shadows, their engines burning red. Within seconds, his communication system crackled to life. A deep, rough voice spoke. Unidentified vessel, you are entering restricted space. Turn back or be destroyed. Daniel took a deep breath and pressed the communicator. Hi. I'm not here to cause trouble. Just looking for a friendly conversation. There was a pause. Then the voice laughed coldly. Humans don't belong here. Leave. Daniel exhaled. Listen, I'm here because of a certain stolen artifact. Maybe we can talk this out instead of, blowing me up. Silence. Then, lower your shields and prepare to be boarded. Daniel sighed. Yeah, figured that was coming. Captured. Minutes later, Daniel was standing in the middle of a rusted outpost, his hands bound behind his back. The air was thick with smoke and oil, and the walls were lined with old Sci-Fi banners, torn and faded. A group of tall, armored Sci-Fi warriors surrounded him, their glowing eyes filled with suspicion. At the center stood their leader, a scarred Sci-Fi with a missing horn. His gaze was sharp, his presence commanding. So, this is the human they sent, the leader said, his voice dripping with amusement. Tell me, human, do you even know what you're looking for? Daniel swallowed. Yeah, the royal artifact, the one you guys took. The leader chuckled. And what if I told you? We didn't steal it. Daniel blinked. Wait, what? Mira had warned him that these rogues were dangerous, but what if the real danger wasn't them? Something about this mission felt wrong, and Daniel was starting to think he had just walked into Varric's real trap. Daniel stared at the scared Sci-Fi leader, his mind racing. We didn't steal it. That changed everything. He had expected to find a group of ruthless exiles hoarding stolen treasure. Instead, he was tied up in their base, listening to a story that made no sense. Daniel narrowed his eyes. If you didn't steal the artifact, who did? The leader smirked. The one who sent you here. Daniel's stomach dropped. Varric. The Sci-Fi leader nodded. Varric wants you gone, human. He fed you lies, knowing we would either kill you or you would fail your mission. Either way, you would be disgraced. Daniel let out a sharp breath. Great. So not only am I stuck on an enemy base, but I've also been set up. This just keeps getting better. The leader studied him for a moment before speaking again. Tell me, human, why did you come here? Was it truly for the artifact, or was it for the princess? Daniel hesitated. He had never thought about it like that. At first, all he wanted was to clear up a misunderstanding and go home. But now, Mira had stood up for him, trusted him, and even tried to help him prepare for this mission. Maybe this wasn't just about proving his worth. Maybe it was about proving that he wouldn't walk away when things got hard. Daniel looked at the leader and straightened his back. I came here because I don't like being pushed around. If Varek thinks he can get rid of me this easily, he's wrong. The Sci-Fi warriors exchanged looks. The leader studied Daniel for a long moment, then let out a deep chuckle. You are either very brave or very foolish, human. Daniel grinned. A little of both, probably. A new plan. The leader turned serious again. Varek has been working against the Emperor for years. He wants power, but as long as Mira exists, he can never take the throne. That's why he sent you here, to remove the only outsider who could protect her. Daniel frowned. So what do we do? The leader smirked. We do something Varek never expected. We go back together. Daniel's eyebrows shot up. Wait, you're saying you'll help me? The leader nodded. We were cast out by Varek's lies. If we return with proof of his betrayal, the Emperor will listen. Daniel felt a surge of hope. Maybe this wasn't a dead-end mission after all. The escape, getting out of the rogue base, was easy. The real challenge was getting back to the capital without getting blown up. Daniel and the Sci-Fi warriors boarded a hidden warship, one that had been locked away since the exiles were cast out. As they powered up the engines, the leader gave Daniel a small metallic box. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What's this? The real royal artifact. The leader's voice was calm. We never stole it. It was given to us by someone in the royal court, someone who knew Varek's plan. Daniel's eyes widened. Then that means there are more traitors than just Varek. Daniel exhaled. Of course there are. Because nothing in my life can ever be simple. The ship blasted off, heading toward Zutfar's capital at full speed. The final confrontation. By the time they arrived, the city was already in chaos. Varek had declared Daniel a failure. The Emperor looked disappointed, and Mira was furious. Then, just as Varek was about to finish his speech, the rogue warship landed in the royal courtyard. Gasps filled the air as Daniel stepped out, alive and very much not defeated. Behind him, the rogue warriors marched out, carrying the real artifact. Mira's eyes widened. Daniel. Varek's face paled. Impossible. Daniel grinned. Miss me. The rogue leader stepped forward, holding up the artifact. We bring proof of Varek's lies. The court erupted into whispers. The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. Varek, explain yourself. Varek's hands curled into fists. For a moment, it looked like he would try to deny everything. But then, he pulled out a hidden energy blade and lunged toward Daniel. Daniel barely had time to react before Mira moved first. With one swift motion, she activated her own energy sword, blocking Varek's attack. Sparks flew as the two blades clashed. Mira's voice was cold and sharp. You've done enough damage, General. Varek growled but quickly found himself surrounded by royal guards. The Emperor rose from his throne. Varek, you have betrayed the Empire. You will answer for your crimes. Varek's expression twisted with rage, but he had no escape. He had lost. A new beginning. With Varek arrested and the truth revealed, order was restored. The exiled warriors were pardoned, and Daniel was finally able to breathe again. Mira approached him, arms crossed. I hope you know this means you can't just leave now. Daniel smirked. Oh, and why's that? Daniel chuckled. Guess that means I'm stuck here, huh? Mira gave him a small, genuine smile. Not stuck, just welcome. For the first time since this whole mess started, Daniel felt like he belonged. And honestly, that wasn't so bad.